Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wild194. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for Berserk Volume 3 by Kentaro Miura. Now first and foremost, I suspect that this used copy I bought may be a bootleg. I'm not really sure. I've bought bootleg Goosebumps books and stuff in the past, and they had like a different paper and a different cover that felt very cardboard-like. This doesn't have anything like that, but when I look at the cover here, and maybe you can't see this, it kind of looks faded in person. It looks way more colorful on my little screen on my camera, but in person it looks way more faded compared to Volume 2. Now, I gotta tell you, Berserk Volume 3. I said in my previous volume review for Volume 2 right before this video, this series is amazing. Volume 3 is probably the best out of the first 3 volumes, in my personal opinion. This was so shockingly, gut-wrenchingly sad and depressing and upsetting. When I read this last week, it really got under my skin. It really got under my skin in a way that many manga, comics, novels, nothing, movies for that matter, have not been able to do. It takes a lot to disturb me, and I've talked about in previous reviews for Volume 1 and Volume 2, Berserk has a very disturbing atmosphere and nature to it. Whether it be the very medieval world that they're in, whether it be the monster transformations, whether it be the demon stuff, whatever. It's very bleak in that way, and I love it, don't get me wrong, but Volume 3 has stuff in it that I don't think you're prepared for. There's one particular scene that I talked about, kind of a portion of this book, that goes into a little bit of the past of Guts, and this is not going to be a spoiler, don't worry about it, don't jump out and cancel the review. There is some history of Guts' character that we actually get to find out more of in this book, this volume. And one line in general gave me chills. Guts' origin gives me chills, and I love that about it. But the actual book starts off with the fight between the Count and Guts still taking place. And we've learned a lot about the Count in Volume 2, which was kind of interesting. This fat emperor guy that's now transformed to this horrific slug-like monster. And he can't be defeated. Every time Guts is cutting off a limb or whatever, this thing is growing it back. There's a very particular way that for whatever reason he and Guts tell each other how to do it. In the previous Volume 2, that Guts is really struggling to try to kill this thing. And usually that's not hard for him with that huge sword that he carries around. But it is tense, man. And the fight gets to a point where I didn't expect it to take the kind of momentum slowdown that it had. But with what happened, it was way more engaging, I guess. It really amped up what was going on here. Again, an atmosphere, in context, in the characters and what was going on there. The Count's character was really well developed in Volume 2, and I wasn't expecting that there. Volume 3, the stuff that we go into with the Count, again, it's gut-wrenching. It's kind of fucked up in a way that, like, I'm not used to seeing that in this series so far, despite how disturbing and gory and bloody this has been as an adventure so far. And by the way, this book is bloody and gory, just like the previous 2. If you don't like that, you're not going to like this because it gets more severe. This book will haunt me the entire year, despite I just bought Volume 4. I'm going to show it in a book haul. And despite the fact that, I don't know, man, it really gets to me. This book was amazing. It was amazing. It's easily my favorite of the 3 volumes that I've read so far. And it is shocking. It is shocking, dude. The way that this fight kind of breaks down. The whole book, basically, is the fight between Guts and the Count. But it also has these breaks that kind of slow it up a little bit and kind of develop some things. Whether it be some past flashbacks to what Guts was like as a kid, some of his training, whatever, to learn a little bit more about him, or some of the other things that we find out with the Count. And there is one particular thing, and this is kind of the possible spoiler thing, some people will think of that I have to talk about. We've heard mention of this thing called the God Hand, involving the mark on the side of Guts' neck. And we weren't sure a whole lot about what that was. The book has kept it very vague up to this point about what that is, who it is, whatever. And here they just outright go for it. And it's a total ripoff of Hellraiser. It's a total ripoff of the Clive Barker Hellraiser movie, or The Hellbound Heart that I reviewed on this channel, the original novella that he wrote, that Hellraiser he adapted from. It's a straight-out knockoff ripoff of Hellraiser, but in a good, charming way. And of course, mind you, Berserk was coming out in the 80s, so it makes sense. This was popular. Hellraiser was popular at that time, so it makes sense that this was taking from that, right? But this one really was unique in an interesting way. For example, kind of the somewhat leader of these Cenobite knockoffs, the God Hand, the person's name was Griffith. I don't really say boy or girl, he or she, because I don't really know. I can't really tell. I think the book hints at it or says it outright at one point. I'm still not convinced by the way this character is drawn. But basically, Griffith has history with Guts, and that was never talked about in previous volumes. The way that is shown at one point, a very quick, maybe 4 or 5 page panel, collection, section, whatever, was great. But this particular character that we see here in the God Hand, when all of them show up, 2 of them looking a lot like the Cenobites, like, it has to be a tribute to Clive Barker. It has to be. One looks like Butterball, the very fat, chubby one. The other one is basically Chatterer, the one with the teeth and no eyes. Then there's like a hot naked chick, and then there's Griffith, and I think there was like one other one I'm forgetting about, but I could be wrong about that. But Griffith looks like Hawkman. If Hawkman wore like a Batman costume and had like the bird beak and stuff, you know, like caw. If it had all of that, that's basically what Griffith looks like. I'm assuming that's armor. I don't know. But the demonic stuff in here, it bothered me on so many levels, right? Like, it bothered me as a ripoff, but it also bothered me in the sense of how dark this was actually getting as a whole situation. The story, the history of Guts, especially with the flashback stuff, there was so much happening here that was so dark that it really bothered me, even spiritually. I mean, I'm a Christian. I've said that numerous times on the channel, but the demonic stuff in here was genuinely dark and genuinely disturbing, and this God Hand thing in the story, that particular point in the story, is going to stick with me the rest of my life. If you do not get chills at least 2 or 3 times reading this, whether it be the portion kind of in Guts' past or the portion involving the Count, and when the God Hands show up in here, if some of this stuff does not stick with you in the back of your head the rest of your life, I don't know what to tell you, dude. It creeped me out. It just put this, I don't know how to explain it. There's just kind of this, I don't want to say fear, but there's like this primal like warning that I feel in the back of my head as I read these books, and I don't know what exactly that is. I guess it's because it's so unique. It's because it's such a weird horror fantasy thing. I think that like if Lovecraft was alive to this day, he would be into this. He would love this series because of what it's like. Berserk Volume 3, I don't want to go into too much more detail. I will show you a little bit of the art that, you know, many of us have talked about. Myself, especially in these reviews. I love the art in these books, man. This is easily the best art, the best storytelling, all of that in here. Even my complaints are not flaws in the book, so it wouldn't be fair to go down into complaining about all that, taking points off in my rating and all of that at the end of the review. Berserk Volume 3, I was not prepared for this, and I've had many of you comment on the other channel that I had put up reviews for this before I decided to re-review them and maintain these series of reviews on this channel. I had seen many of you comment on Volume 1's review that I did a while back on here, telling me that I was not prepared for the journey that I was going to go on. I'm 3 books in, and I agree with you 100%. I was not prepared for Volume 1 to be as great as it was, 2 to be as dark as that was, and 3 to be as grim as it is. I wasn't prepared for this, and I don't know emotionally how often I can read these. I've said numerous times when I've reviewed things like Death Note. Death Note, I have to take massive breaks between each volume that I read, and I mean massive, sometimes a whole year before I get to the next volume because of how nervous that series makes me, how anxious it makes me. Berserk, I don't think I'll take breaks from because these are shorter volumes than those big black editions of Death Note. But dude, you need breathing time. You need to like read one of these like every week or two to get a chance to, I guess, take a breather is really the best way to describe it, honestly, because this is some dark shit. This is something that, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you. So if you haven't read Berserk Volume 3, you owe it to yourself to start from Volume 1, work your way up to this, obviously, but you need to emotionally prepare yourself, because, dude, my God. So anyway, have you read Berserk Volume 3? What do you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below and let me know everything you think about the series so far. If you're reading along with me, what do you think about this book so far? I'd love to hear all of that down below too. And if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I think it's very clear my love for Berserk already. And this volume especially is very obvious too. It's dark, it's almost kind of evil, it's mean-spirited shit, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future when we get to, like, Volume 4, and, like, what are we going to do with some of the things that happens with Guts by the end of this book? What are we going to do with the relationship between Puck and Guts in here? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really even have a prediction. I kind of don't even want to predict, because I feel any way I go, I'm going to be wrong, because of the kind of world this is, the kind of things we're dealing with in here, the themes, all of that stuff. This is not like anything I've ever read. I love comics, I love dark, extreme horror novels and stuff. This is like nothing I've ever read. And, yeah. So if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I think it's very clear it'd be a 5 out of 5 stars. No questions asked. Amazing read. High recommendation for me from the series to this volume easily. So check it out if you haven't. And thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.